Charlie, good morning to you. We have learned that the suspect told at least several individuals that he was planning to assassinate Charlie Kirk. In one of those instances, it was in a note he left for his romantic partner. In another, it was a text message to a separate individual. Neither person has been charged, but they could be down the road as the investigation continues. Here's FBI Director Kash Patel describing one of those messages last night on Hannity.
We've collected information where, through witness interviews from the FBI and local law enforcement, that he essentially admitted after the shooting and assassination of Charlie Kirk, the suspect admitted to it. But I will say what was found in terms of information, a text message exchange where the suspect specifically stated that he had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and he was going to do that. And when he was asked why, he said some hatred cannot be negotiated with.
The alleged assassin was an avid gamer and very active on Discord, which is a popular messaging platform used by a lot of gamers. We've learned that shortly before the 22-year-old turned himself in, he confessed to assassinating Charlie Kirk in a group chat on Discord. In messages obtained by the Washington Post, he wrote, "Hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Thanks for all the good times and laughs. You've been all amazing. Thank you all for everything." We also know just hours before those messages, in a different chat group, the alleged assassin was joking with friends who said he looked really similar to the man the FBI was searching for. Here's Kash Patel on Fox and Friends describing how those chat groups are factoring into this investigation.
People think we can just get in these group chats and immediately find out who's in them. And there are scores of people in this Discord chat room. But we have to effectuate legal process. We have to go out there with search warrants so that if prosecutors want to later use this evidence, it's not tainted by being illegally obtained.
The accused killer is expected to be formally charged today, and those charges are expected to include aggravated murder, which does bring the possibility of the death penalty. And in Utah, that can either be by lethal injection or by firing squad. Carly?
Yeah.
Standing strong for Charlie Kirk this morning, Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. We will never forget Charlie, the man he was, and I don't think that God will allow that, in fact, because, well, I've been doing a lot of thinking. And I had a conversation this morning with a man of faith, and it's just remarkable. I got goosebumps considering how Christ advances his kingdoms. And I just want to share off the top that God is the author of life and death, and that through martyrdom, God has always advanced his kingdom. The story of Stephen, the first martyr, when you study it, it is a remarkable thing. And I know we're not going to have time to get to it in the rest of the show, so I just want to share this word of encouragement with you. In the years after Christ's crucifixion and resurrection, there was extreme prejudice against the church. It was being hunted. The Christian church was being hunted for extermination. They were sequestered away. They were scared. They were in hiding. Many didn't feel like they could speak about Christ. Many didn't feel like they had the power to do it, or many feared for their lives, and rightly so. They were being censored. They were being attacked by the authorities. They were being put in jail, Christians, for speaking truth. the truth, the eternal truth, the truth of Christ's resurrection and salvation. And in that time of fear, there were about 200 Christians left. It would have been the moment for Satan and for the darkness of this world to smother and smite Christianity forever. The faith has never been more under attack than in that moment, more fragile than in that moment. All Christians were hidden away effectively in attics and in apartments in Jerusalem, all living in fear, save one man, Stephen, who was young. He was the same age as Charlie. And Stephen, compelled by the Holy Spirit, got up. And even though it was illegal to do so, even speaking the name of Christ was illegal, speaking Christ's truth was illegal and punishable by death, Stephen got up and began to boldly proclaim the name of Christ Jesus, boldly saying and speaking truth. And he spoke it in the street corners. He spoke it at the tables. I don't think that they had electronic amplification or microphones at that time. But if he had one, he would have screamed it from a microphone. He would have had an open debate and a peaceful debate, and that is exactly what Stephen did. For speaking the truth, Stephen was murdered by the authorities in public, bludgeoned to death, and given up to God, the first martyr. And through Stephen's martyrdoms, brutality, and public assassination, the church grew. Not just a little, but in that moment, because everyone saw that a man was willing to die for this truth, was willing to give his life for this truth, people began to pay attention. People began to say, wait a second, this is so unheard of. Everyone relents. Everyone cowers. Everyone backs away. Except for people who know the truth, and they are willing to die for it. And in that moment, through the martyrdom of Stephen, the Christian church expanded and grew in a way unfathomable and unseen, unparalleled throughout all time. The single greatest expansion of the Christian church, from 200 Christians to 200,000 living in all corners of the earth. That was the power of martyrdom, the power of dying for your beliefs, living for your beliefs, and yes, dying for your beliefs, as God is the author of life and death. Our life is in his control and our death is in his control. Would there even be Christianity today without that martyrdom? We know that what Charlie wanted was for his legacy to be a legacy of courage for his faith. And now what you're seeing today is the same network effect. Charlie's social media accounts have doubled, sometimes tripled in size. We'll cover it today, but hundreds of thousands, probably millions live watching J.D. Vance give a profound and poignant lecture from Charlie Kirk's chair, the dais that Charlie Kirk left empty on his show, The Charlie Kirk Show. And I just want to set that about for you. So many people feel this so strongly. This is such a weighty moment. This is such a heavy moment because everybody felt like they knew Charlie because of the power of his social media, the power of his presence, his words. He was ubiquitous online. I think he was followed by close to 30 million people. That number has now doubled after his political assassination, after his martyrdom. This is the hand of God. Get chills, get goosebumps like I have. This is the hand of God working in our nation today. Through Charlie, through his memory, as God has always worked to build his kingdom. The martyrdom of Stephen and so many of the other apostles. That blood falling to the ground is what springs eternal. In eternal life, that blood falling to the ground refreshes the tree of eternal life and our Christian faith. And so be uplifted even in sorrow and understand that the wonders of God are happening before our very eyes. And that's our hope. That's what separates us from the animals. That's our difference, that Charlie Kirk is not dead. Charlie Kirk is alive today with his Savior and his Creator in paradise. It's a word of encouragement off the top of the show. Kash Patel is testifying right now. We have important new and breaking news about some of the terrorist groups that may have had a part in Charlie Kirk's political assassination. We've been investigating them along with some other incredible investigators, and President Trump has straight up said that he is going to declare Antifa a terrorist organization. Well done. We're going to speak with Senator Markwayne Mullen today on the program, Jack Posobiec as well. We're going to talk a little bit about what can be done, what can be restored in this nation to ensure that we have no further left-wing, militant, terroristic violence. It is now time to speak with authority. It is now time to speak with verve and with passion and with acute precision about what enemy we face in this nation. J.D. Vance did it spectacularly yesterday. Kash Patel doing a wonderful job today in front of the Senate. We'll cover some of it live. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. I want to make sure that, ladies and gentlemen, in the future that we are building for America, we are safe and we are secure. I want to ensure that you are safe and secure. I want to ensure that you are able to seize the greatness of our American future and our American experiment. And the best way to do that, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you have crippling debt right now, is to go to my friends at American Financing to ensure that you are able to get out of debt, to ensure that you are able to seize the opportunities before you, and that you do not have to live as a slave. Debt is slavery. I do not want you to live as a slave. I wish for you to live free. Right now, American Financing helping homeowners save an average of $800 a month using their home equity to wipe out their high-interest debt. No upfront fees, no obligation, just a 10-minute call to their salary-based mortgage consultants. Don't wait. Call American Financing today at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, americanfinancing.net/Benny. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's Kash Patel. He's testifying live in front of the Senate. Now, this is going to be 2 straight days of testimony. And the way that we've decided to cover this, given the fact that we have done these many times before, is we have our best production team on earth that is going to be monitoring what is happening inside of this hearing. There's going to be an extraordinary and excruciating amount of bloviating from these senators, and I don't want to bore you with all of it. Now, Kash honored Charlie Kirk off the top of his comments and his remarks, and then Chuck Grassley had something pretty remarkable to say about the targeting of Turning Point USA, something that I certainly knew to be true based on my close proximity to Turning Point USA and its leadership, something that I do not believe that the rest of the American public knows as of yet. Chairman Chuck Grassley broke this news approximately 15 minutes ago during this live hearing. Chuck Grassley talking about how Turning Point USA was the target of a politicized FBI investigation to try and shut down support for President Trump. In case you're wondering how terrifying these left-wing militant groups are when they get control of your federal government and federal law enforcement, what do you think happens? And we all have our blood runs cold thinking about what would have happened if Kamala Harris was president upon days like this, and what would be happening in Charlotte when Irina Zastruka was stabbed in the neck. Kamala Harris from the White House would be canceling everyone who even spoke about it, would be banning every account that even shared the video. Same thing with Charlie's political assassination and murder. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're thankful for clarity like this and for this revelation. Now, my team is hitting me up right now. I just want, boys, the top line and most important commentary from Kash on this. That's the way we're going to cover this. We're going to jump in and out live. Here we go. This is Chuck Grassley announcing that Turning Point USA was politically targeted by the Joe Biden FBI. Let's go.
Well, it's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics. I'm going to provide examples of that today, including making public new whistleblower records. At your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provide me about Arctic Frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by antitrust Trump FBI agent Thibault. Arctic Frost then became Jack Smith's elector case against then citizen Trump and now President Trump. These new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. The case was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples of the group that Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorney General's Association, and various Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of Arctic Frost. On that political list was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic Frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump.
I've been so proud of the Trump administration for refusing to do what every cuck Republican in every administration, every limp-wristed and limp dick, every flaccid, humiliating, groveling, simp goblin Republican has done in my lifetime. Yes, I'm looking at you, Paul Ryan. James T. Hodgkinson. Nobody remembers this man's name. I do. Because I was in Washington, D.C. when James T. Hodgkinson hopped up on MSNBC hate, vile vitriol. I know this because I went through the man's Facebook page before it was wiped. I may be the only person on earth that actually truly scoured this guy's social media in the aftermath of the congressional shooting. Now, you may not remember this. It was a long time ago. It was nearly a decade ago. But in 2017, at the very start of the nascent Trump administration, James T. Hodgkinson premeditated, walked up to the congressional baseball team practicing. This is 27 different members of Congress. They're out practicing baseball in a field. Some very famous members of Congress are among them, like Rand Paul and Steve Scalise, for instance. He asks, "Are you Republicans?" And they say yes. He whips out his AR-15 and sprays bullets, getting off dozens of shots, an open season, hunting fish in a barrel. It's a miracle that no one was murdered. Many were shot, and some of them were in critical condition, like Steve Scalise. Famous miracle there is that Steve Scalise survived. He only survived because there was a Secret Service agent there that was able to fire back. In the aftermath of this, there was not a national conversation about left-wing terrorism, which I need to repeat. Let's say it again. In the aftermath of a far left-winger who worked for Bernie Sanders, who I will have burned in the back of my skull for the rest of my life, that this individual shared MSNBC, his entire Facebook page was just an MSNBC vomit of memes about Donald Trump, dehumanization of Republicans, MSNBC links, Rachel Maddow tweets. This guy was an absolute and total hobgoblin for the left. Brain melted by their seething hate and vitriol. Driven to open fire to commit murder against at least 20 members of the Republican Party, serving congressional members of the Republican Party. No one remembers this guy. This was, without doubt, worse than anything, every crime added up on January 6th together. Put every crime that was charged, even all of the bullshit charges on January 6th, put them all together, add them all up. This was worse than all of them combined. And no one remembers his name. And nothing happened. Nobody had a moment of examination of the left, of the demonic tactics of the left, their messaging, their ecosystems, their funding, their left-wing groups, the dark money organizations. Nobody said, wait a second, we have to tone all the, we have to tone it all down. You know what happened? Cuck buddy Paul Ryan went and literally linked arms with Nancy Pelosi, the woman who is behind the funding and messaging of this domestic terrorist wing. So many of the little agents of Nancy Pelosi went out and have openly advocated for violence against Trump supporters. They do it again and again. Maxine Waters is one that comes to top of mind, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of Nancy Pelosi and people from her party calling Republicans Nazis, Hitler, terrorists, whatever, signaling to their base, painting a target on all of our backs. And Paul Ryan's response to this was to link arms with Nancy Pelosi and sing Kumbaya down on the House floor. To sit there and navel gaze and to both sidesism and to say, well, this is just a time for unity. Nope, it's not a time for unity. Right now is a time to honor Charlie with the ruthless and total desolation of the radical, militant, terroristic, left-wing ideologies that continue to get Republicans killed, that continue to get Republicans with bullets through their head like President Trump, targeted like Trump has been in 4 or 5 assassination attempts. Imagine the ones we don't know about. Imagine how many attempts on Trump's life we don't know about by left-wingers, by these sociopaths. And it's because Republicans refuse to do the hard thing and to speak truth. Thank God. Thank God we finally have a Republican Party that is willing to say, we will not unify with evil. Now, we said this on Megyn, we said this on Megyn Kelly's show last week. We were first out the gate. Went thermonuclear viral with it. Just saying, you know what? We're not going to unify with evil. We're not going to play the whole both sides game. We're not going to allow you to say that this happens on both sides. Because what that's doing is saying that by saying that, you're saying that Charlie Kirk contributed to his political assassination. That's what you're doing. You're desecrating his grave as bad, if not worse, than the squeeing demons of TikTok. No. No. Leftists won't even take responsibility or acknowledge their language against Charlie, their painting of him, Their slandering of a good man, a noble husband, a doting father, a committed Christian as Hitler. They're constant dragging him through the mud in front of their audience and painting him as the world's foremost evil, which is what they've done. They do that on a media ecosystem level, on an influencer level. Then dark money groups go and fund militant left-wing terroristic groups, dark money organizations and NGOs, we're going to prove this today, by the way, fund militant left-wing groups that train and that target and that pull people to the very edge. They actually groom those who are the most mentally ill among us, hop them up on pharmaceuticals, snap their brains, understanding that those individuals will look about at their miserable lives, no children, no family, nothing of true value, no choices for purpose in their lives. And eventually one of them is going to snap and say, you know what? I could go out a hero if I just killed Hitler. That's the ecosystem. That's the cycle. That's the circle of life for these people. That's what they do, the circle of life, the circle of evil. But that's the system. We're going to expose it today. We're going to expose it. And I am through with the both sidesism. Greg Gutfeld had a great takedown on this. If it's not in this show, let's make sure that we grab that. I want to go to J.D. Vance on this. I want to give you an example. So I've ripped the weak and feckless Republican leaders in the past who allowed themselves to be targeted and abused and terrorized by the left out of fear and weakness. And that fear and that weakness is now gone and is being met by resolve, strength, and power. Second most powerful man in the world? Who is it? Well, many would say J.D. Vance. And I think you'd have a great argument for that. J.D. Vance, of course, we are massive fans of. He is the intellectual backbone of MAGA and the continuation of America First. Yesterday, he did the most honorable thing I've ever seen a vice president do by hosting the Charlie Kirk Show. He did so to hundreds of thousands of live viewers across platforms, probably millions when you add them all up. And he had a beautiful and a memorable conversation with a series of people about Charlie's legacy. But then he ended with this. We will not unify with those who want us dead. There is no unity with terrorists. There is no unity with evil or darkness. What did the scriptures say? The scriptures say that we must set about destroying darkness, not unifying it, not embracing it, not cuddling up to it. We must dispatch it. It must be our fight on this earth, our eternal struggle. J.D. Vance, embracing that message and going there fully in what is the single most important statement ever made by a vice president right here.
And while our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left. After Charlie died, one of his friends and one of our senior White House staffers had left-leaning operatives in his neighborhood passing out leaflets telling people what he looked like and where he lived, encouraging neighbors to harass him or, God forbid, to do worse. While he was mourning his dead friend, he and his wife had to worry about the political terrorists drawing a big target on the home he shares with his young children. Are these people violent? I hope not. But are they guilty of encouraging violence? You damn well better believe it. We can thank God that most Democrats don't share these attitudes, and I do, while acknowledging that something has gone very wrong with a lunatic fringe, a minority, but a growing and powerful minority on the far left. There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree.
Perfect. Perfect. That is pitch perfect. We sent our most peaceful agent to you, and you killed him. So now it's time to accept the message that you have been screaming at us through your yellow teeth and your wild darting eyes, bloodshot, filled with hate, sunken into your face, spittle flying out of your mouth. It is time for us to believe you when you say that you want all of us dead. It's time for us to classify you as a terrorist organization. It's time for federal law enforcement to, with the force of law, ensure that those who are organizing terrorism are able to be charged and are able to not threaten our nation. Some wild and bombshell reporting out this morning about a radicalized, militant Marxist group in Utah that has some very, very dangerous and suspicious activity. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But I want to give huge credit to the Trump administration. Stephen Miller was on J.D. Vance's guest hosting of Charlie's show yesterday, and he just rings like a bell. Let's go.
Walk me through, at a high level, like what you and I have been working on, what the whole administration has been working on to try to make sure that we don't reward and promote this craziness.
Yes, so it's an excellent question. I've said this before, and but it bears repeating. The last message that Charlie sent me was, I think it was just the day before we lost him, which is that we need to have an organized strategy to go after the left-wing organizations that are promoting violence in this country. And I will write those words onto my heart, and I will carry them out. If people ask me, what emotions I'm feeling right now, this is something people say. I mean, you kind of know the answer. There's incredible sadness, but there's incredible anger. And the thing about anger is that unfocused anger or blind rage is not a productive emotion.
Right.
But focused anger, righteous anger, directed for a just cause is one of the most important agents of change in human history.
Charlie showed that. Amen.
And we are going to channel all of the anger that we have over the organized campaign that led to this assassination to uproot and dismantle these terrorist networks. So let me explain a little bit what that means. So,
I've got 30 seconds, so be quick, Stephen.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence, it is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
Thank you.
We will destroy the militarized, left-wing, well-funded terrorist network of the left. With God as my witness, says Stephen Miller. To J.D. Vance. Two of what I would say are the most scariest, bad men to have standing against you. If you add President Trump to that, then you're finished. And President Trump yesterday talking about Antifa. Now, we know that there were Antifa messages scrawled and carved upon the bullet casings. Who did that, by the way? Who did that? Who scrawled on the bullet case? Who wrote on bullet case? What an interesting and unique skill to have. Who wrote on bullet casings? There's got to be DNA left there. Whose DNA is on those bullets? What artiste is making the carvings on the bullet casings? Who would know how to do that in the first place? Safely and efficiently. These are important questions, but we know that Antifa messaging was written upon the bullet casings that were shot or intended to be shot at Charlie. President Trump, picking up where he left off in the year 2020, playing the oldies, saying Antifa must be designated as a terrorist organization.
Given with all the that's going on with Charlie Kirk's assassination and the left-wing violence going on, do you have plans, and actually this is a great opportunity with all these, do you plan on designating Antifa finally a domestic terror organization?
Well, it's something I would do, yeah. If I have support from the people back here, I think we'd start with Pam, I think. But I would, if you give me, I would do that 100%. And others also, by the way. But Antifa is terrible.
Are there other groups that you can think of?
There are other groups, yeah. There are other groups. We have some pretty radical groups, and they got away with murder. And also, I've been speaking to the Attorney General about bringing RICO against some of the people that you've been reading about that have been putting up millions and millions of dollars for agitation. These aren't protests. These are crimes, what they're doing, where they're throwing bricks at cars of ICE and Border Patrol. And they come in with a beautiful new car. They're so proud. It's Border Patrol, ICE, it's got whatever it is. And they're throwing rocks at it. And after 50 yards, it looks like an old beat-up vehicle. It was just brand new. It was just bought for the purposes. And they don't have to take that anymore. I let it be known. We'll take responsibility. They don't have to take it anymore. And they don't want to take it. They were told by a past administration, it became almost a culture, if somebody throws a rock at you, do nothing. If somebody spits in your face, do nothing. And I say, when they spit, you hit. Do whatever you want. You do whatever the hell you want. I watched it so sick it made me. For 4 years, I had to sit home and watch people screaming at policemen and spitting in their face, and they weren't able to do anything. They just had a grin and bear it. They're standing up like a piece of steel. And a woman, in many cases, women, you can see they're professional agitators. I had one the other night. I had 4 the other night, all in one group, total phonies. I started to scream when I got into a restaurant, something with Palestine. And I said, well, I'm doing a great job for peace in the Middle East. I should get lots of awards for that, right? With the Abraham Accords and everything else. But a woman just stood up and started screaming. And she got booed out of the place, too. There were a lot of people in the restaurant. I went there to show how safe, and it was safe. I mean, the woman is just a mouthpiece. All she was a paid agitator. And you have a lot of them. And I've asked Pam to look into that in terms of RICO, bringing RICO cases against it, criminal RICO, because they should be put in jail. What they're doing to this country is really subversive.
Lucky for us, we do have friends at the FBI, and they are assisting in picking up our phone calls and fielding our questions about this as to what happens next. Who's being investigated? And why? Because it's a lot like pound your fist on the table. Thankfully, President Trump noted a specific domestic terrorist group that they wish to target. Good. You have to name these things. But you have to be able to see what is happening. You have to be able to say, not just, let's go after all of them, but what groups? How are they being funded? What are they doing? And I want to look into one group specifically. I want to begin by saying that this is one of the many groups who are currently under investigation by federal authorities. This you're not supposed to see. It's okay, keep it up. But you're not supposed to see this. Let's go back up the top real fast. This is the now deleted Instagram account, nearly 7,000 followers, of the Armed Queers of Salt Lake City. You'll notice something quite shocking about the Armed Queers of Salt Lake City, that their logo, and maybe this is just happenstance, maybe this is just gallows level happenstance, but their logo happens to include very clearly the same caliber of bullet inscribed with Antifa and pro-queer messaging, much like the bullets that murdered Charlie was. Perhaps this is just a very dark coincidence. I don't know. And it is important for me to establish that I am going to talk about this because I want to bring forward the existence of these groups. I want you to see the groups that exist. I do not know what culpability they have in Charlie's murder because I'm not the federal investigators. But I can tell you that they are being federally investigated. That's what I can tell you. And I can tell you that their behavior has been guilty as hell, meaning they've wiped all of their social media. Why do that? You know, I work in this industry. If you're rapidly deleting things and in a panic, like nuking all of your accounts, it's never a good thing. Something's gone wrong. You're worried about something. That's all I can say. Armed queers of Salt Lake City. We're just going to focus on this group because I want to give you a little example of what kind of left-wing groups exist out there. Armed Queers of Salt Lake City is a Marxist paramilitary group. It's being investigated by federal authorities in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's left-wing political assassination. This radical group immediately deleted their social media in the aftermath of Charlie's murder. All the data was captured by investigators. It's very concerning. And a federal law enforcement source told me this morning that given what they are finding, that this group deserves to be classified as a domestic terrorist organization. We've talked about the logo, but now let's look at some of the deleted videos. In one deleted video, you'll find out that the leaders of the Armed Queers of Salt Lake City just traveled to Cuba. Odd. I guess it's not illegal. But whilst in Cuba, they are bragging about meeting with hardened Marxist revolutionaries and getting training in order to bring the revolution back to America, a country that they call the belly of the beast. The Marxist leaders that they met with bragged about being labeled terrorists. They call themselves doctors. They brag about it. We have the video. It's been saved from a scrubbed social media account. The group has openly coordinated with the Cuban government and the global Marxist movement in various venues and events across America and the world. The leader of this group is an Iranian immigrant, self-identified communist, who's been honored by the U.S. State Department, the United Nations, and has very specific ties to NGOs with dark money funding. Those NGOs, by the way, have completely scrubbed her from all of their pages. Isn't that interesting? Great deal of the evidence for all of this comes to us thanks to the Data Republican and other sources. The Data Republican here, breaking down this group. Again, I'll leave it to the federal investigators to figure out what the connection is. But this is just a prime example of a left-wing militant group in the basic general area, not even hard to find, that has very shady and creepy ties to our State Department, to the United Nations, to communists in Cuba. They're getting training there. They're bragging about it. Their Instagram, again, you're not supposed to see this. Their Instagram has no shortage of what would be considered, as far as I'm concerned, posts that are inflammatory, certainly violations of terms of service on the Meta platforms, at the very least. You know, you get like 50 different right-wing Instagram accounts nuked per day by the platform, per second by the platform. Yet accounts like this can remain up, openly calling for revolution in America, openly supporting Iranian, Cuban, Marxist, communist regimes, the Communist Party of China, Right down to the very bottom here. Armed trans women. There you go. Armed trans women. I mean, is it incitement? I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer. Is it something that needs to be looked into? Yes, absolutely. And we're thankful that people are finally looking into it, that J.D. Vance is finally talking about it, that Stephen Miller is saying that the federal resources are going to be there, provided. We're going to look at the funding of these organizations. And President Trump, of course, with a full heart in the Oval Office, saying, yes, we are going to destroy far left-wing, militant, radical extremism. Again, I am a proponent of free speech. I know that that's going to be a big debate right now. Charlie Kirk hated hate speech laws. What's good for the goose, good for the gander. Like, you know, these things can be obviously flipped around in an instant to utterly decimate free speech. The way is the ruthless salting of the earth by federal authorities, classification of proven left-wing militant terroristic domestic organizations, and then the prosecution of the funders. And that's the next thing that happens. You hear a lot right now, the term RICO. And that's what happens next. So we're thankful for the full savage mode that the Trump administration is going on right now. President Trump, I want to play one final clip from him, talking about how President Trump, who's being briefed on this daily, I hear, it says that the radicalization occurred through online networks like the one that we just demonstrated to you. Online networks that are now rapidly and quickly trying to delete everything before federal authorities can get it. Now, I can tell you with a high confidence that federal authorities have not only this, but a lot. And that they are trying to piece together right now. If you have any tips, you can go to the FBI tips at FBI.gov and you can send them in. Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump declaring, we know exactly how the left-wing murderer of Charlie Kirk was radicalized. Here we go.
Charlie Kirk's assassination.
And New Orleans, we want to get to, too.
Your FBI is investigating the potential role of left-wing organizations in the assassination. I'm wondering if you think if Charlie Kirk's assassin worked alone or if he worked with him.
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you he didn't work alone on the internet because it seems that he became radicalized on the internet. That's just by watching same things that you're watching and hearing. It looks like he became radicalized over the internet. And it seems like he has wonderful parents, brought in a wonderful neighborhood, smart guy, great boards, great marks, great student. And then something happened to him over a fairly short period of time. It looks like he was radicalized over the internet, and it's radicalized on the left. He's a left. I have a lot of problems with the left, and they get protected, and they shouldn't be protected. But as you understand, I think very well from the tone of your question. Thank you very much.
All right, good. Good. Now it's time to finally have this conversation. Good. Good. Those who remember what Republicans have done to us. Every single time there has been terroristic left-wing violence, it has been met with weakness and an invitation for more violence. Broken windows theory. The right is guilty of the allowance of further violence by not accepting what the left tells us, which is that they want a extremist element of the left is perfectly happy with the death of their political opponent. That is what the data shows. And that is what they continue to tell us. And it is well past time for us to have a due cause to take this threat seriously. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us in a second will be Senator Markwayne Mullen, who knows how to take these threats seriously and who is a dear friend to Charlie. Before we get to the senator, now is a time to ensure that you are stable. I know there's a lot of rocky moments right now. There's a lot of distractions right now. the assurance that I am stable as we build this, as we carry on Charlie's mission, as we carry forward at this site, is ensuring that we have financial stability, wisdom, and a team behind us that assists as we build. They've been assisting us in building this channel and in building our capacity here. Allio Capital is the way that I invest in an increasingly divided world, politically, socially, and economically. Allio Capital ensures that we keep operations here clean and sharp by using AI to power our investments, making sure that we are identifying shifts in inflation, interest rates, global risk, adapting portfolios in real time. We are thankful for their partnership. Download their app at the App Store or at Google Play, or text my name to 511-511. That's ALLIO Capital. Text Benny to 511-511. Download the Allio app or text Benny to 511-511 today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have Senator Markwayne Mullen of Oklahoma, a friend of the show and a dear patriot, somebody who knew Charlie well, was a regular on the Charlie Kirk show, joins us live now. Senator, thank you. I think that we're going to be spending the rest of the week, certainly through Sunday, eulogizing and memorializing Charlie. While I want to get to the heavy issues and the heavy work at hand in disrupting and destroying left-wing domestic terrorism, I want to just give you an opportunity to talk about what Charlie meant to you, perhaps share a personal story.
It's going to make me emotional if you do that, brother. So that wasn't how that was supposed to start. Dang it, Vinny. I wasn't expecting that. Here's let me just sum it up for Charlie. Me moving forward, I've dealt with a lot of death in my life. You and I have talked about what I used to do before I was in Congress and before stuff that's not on my true resume. And so I've learned how to process it. And first of all, Charlie's death hit me harder than most because it was senseless. It was pointless, it was hard for me to process why somebody that actually loved people, that spoke on Christian values, who was a gentleman that took the argument to their backyard and gave them a platform to debate him, and he would debate with love on Christian values, on biblical principles, on historical facts, on the founding fathers, on Federalist Papers, the Constitution, or the Bill of Rights. It didn't matter. He would go through it, and he could debate you on any of them. And yet somebody wanted to silence him. But as I went through the weekend, what Charlie meant to me was someone that I had a tremendous amount of respect for, that had a vision of politics, had a vision of winning the souls and heart of the young population by doing something no one else was doing. That has switched for me because I had a tremendous amount of respect and love and respect for what he was doing. But now I've got to switch to his legacy, and his legacy is a Christian man that was a devoted husband, that was an awesome father, and he had his principles in place, which it was God, family, and country. And hearing him speak, which I've gone back through, and I went down rabbit holes now, listening to him, and now my algorithms are all kicking up constantly on social media, and now I want to be a father like him. I want to be a husband like him. Yesterday, JD shared when he was doing his show, which I was there in JD's office with him when he was doing the Charlie Kirk show. And in the opening, he shared that Charlie had never raised his voice to his wife. I can't say that. My wife knows how to push my buttons more than anybody, but yet I love her dearly, and she's my best friend. But she also will say the same thing about me, as far as pushing her buttons. But that's an example. To live the example of a father through Christ's eyes is an example, and I want to be that example. I want that to be my legacy. Not that I was a senator, not that I was anything else, but that I want somebody. I want a friend like JD to be able to speak about me the way that JD spoke about Charlie. That has changed my mindset. So while I've went through the aggravation of hurt and disbelief, I am now set to the point of pride. I got to know Charlie. I get to tell my grandkids I knew Charlie, because what he started and now what is happening around the world, it has never happened to you and I in our lifetime. This is something that is going to be a movement that's going to change generations to come. It's going to change Gen X. It's going to change Gen Z. It's going to change our campuses. And we're not going to see the full effect of it until 20 years from now. And you and I, Benny, get to say we knew him personally. He was a friend. There's not a lot of people that get to say they knew JFK. There's not a lot of people that get to say they knew RFK. There's not a lot of people that get to say they knew Martin Luther King. But that's what we get to see, and that's what we get to say, and we get the opportunity to continue this legacy. The fact that there was only 9,000 chapters on colleges' campuses on September 10th. There was only 1,100 high school chapters on September 10th. And now there's 37,000 requests around the world. And keep in mind, there's only 23,000 high schools in the country. To just say that that's how many people is wanting to be part of a Turning Point USA chapter, it's an honor now. Now I get to, I've always had a hard time with memorial services when they say it's a celebration of life. And this is the first time I actually get it. This is the first time that I actually get it. My mom said it best in a text that she sent me. And my mom hasn't texted me 5 times since texting has been invented. And she sent me this big old long text. And she knew I was hurting, and she knows I've dealt with death a lot. And my wife has even had a hard time with it, because she doesn't see me get emotional. Unless I'm talking about my wife and kids, I don't get emotional, especially when it comes to death. But my mom said it best. She said, Charlie was a Christian because he spoke about it all the time. He spoke to you about his faith all the time. And the fact that his spirit had to know that he had a short time in life, only 31 years, because he got so much accomplished in that short time. And she said, I'm not making the comparison of the two, but there was one man that's also talked about in history that had a short time in life. And he had 12 disciples, and look how his gospel spread. She said, I'm not comparing him to Jesus Christ. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the Spirit knew he had 31 years. And now it's going to continue farther than he even imagined in his life. It's going to go farther than his ability. And I think that helped me more than anything when my mom sent that to me. I was like, okay, I'm a 48-year-old man who has a ridiculous title, and my mom is still encouraging me in that way and helping me process things. And I think we can all learn from that.
Charlie will be considered, I believe, amongst some of the greatest Christian martyrs, and certainly is an American martyr. And you're already seeing the revival that has sprung up in this nation in Charlie's name, and again, at his approval, smiling down from heaven. This is something that Charlie said constantly, and every time he was asked about death or legacy, Charlie only ever responded with his Christian faith, I want to be known for my faith and courage in it. And this is what Charlie said again and again and again, and you can see that legacy, of course, with full churches, full baptisms, full parking lots, and Jesus walks and prayers and vigils throughout America. So I think that legacy is certainly secure, and it is the hand of God acting right now on
Benny,
our nation.
Did you see what was it at the Angel Stadium when they had the praise and worship? I think it was at the Angel Stadium. I'm not sure, the baseball game. Really? where they did the praise and worship song, and they had people standing there with their hands up in the air, praising the Lord, and at a baseball game. I don't know if you saw it. If not, I'll look it up, and we'll get
a baseball game in one of the most sunken and demonically possessed and darkest places in America there in Los Angeles. Yeah, you can feel the spiritual energy whenever you're there.
I was just
makes
I
my
was
skin
just
crawl.
shocked. Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? And I mean this sincerely, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we become acquaintances that's turning into friends. Can I truly ask you, how are you doing? Because I know you guys were. I was friends with Charlie. You two were close, and it's tough. Sometimes you just need a hug, and so if you need that, I'll be happy to do that for you at some point. But how are you holding up?
So in moments like this, you have to remind yourself who the man was and what he did for your life. I have a family in a safe and beautiful state here in Florida because of Charlie Kirk. I am no longer an alcoholic because of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was somebody who established in my life Christ as the center, when booze and degeneracy, frankly, when I first met Charlie, was the center of my life. Charlie Kirk in many ways saved me from myself, from eternal damnation. Well, he prophesied to me. He was a man who spoke into my life. And when my family, there was a hail of bullets traveling down our block in Washington, D.C., when fire threatened my children's lives in Washington, D.C., Charlie offered me his home and his personal residence to stay in for as long as we needed to find a safe and secure location. He's the only man who did that. And we stayed for months. And the reason why I'm in Florida, Senator, and the reason why I have a thriving family here and business is because of Charlie. I must now internalize that and ask the Lord why. Why did you take Charlie? And to that, I searched the scriptures. And you can look to the very earliest days of the Christian church and find that the martyrdom of Stephen, a young man who was Charlie's age, and I got chills, and I get chills now thinking about it. I couldn't believe it when I looked it up. Charlie's age, who was murdered in public, stoned, in fact, by the authorities because he was speaking truth. He was speaking truth that made people uncomfortable. He was speaking the light of Christ when it was illegal. Stephen was doing his own prove me wrong about the life of Christ. And he was dragged out and killed for it. In fact, it was the Apostle Paul who was holding the garments so that everyone could kill Stephen. Upon Stephen's death, there were 200 Christians that were cloistered away and hidden in Jerusalem. They were in fear of their lives. The church was never more fragile. It was truly able to be smote by evil with the right strike. And after Stephen was the single greatest expansion of Christianity in the history of the world. It went from 200 believers to 200,000, reaching every corner of every nation. The man who held the garments to stone Stephen went on to write the entirety of the New Testament, the majority of it. His name was Saul then, and he was the Apostle Paul after. And that was the power of a martyr. And that was that God uses martyrdom throughout the Christian faith in order to save people. Why? Because people don't die for a lie, Senator. People die for the truth. And when someone is willing to give up their life, when someone's willing to live for the truth, as Charlie did, and then die for the truth, as tends to happen, people stop and pay attention. Have you ever seen anyone pass away? Have you ever seen anyone die and then suddenly their social media followings double or triple on someone who is no longer presently on this earth, alive with his Savior in heaven? Have you ever seen that? No one's ever seen it in their lives. I've never seen a death in my life, and there's been many great and famous men who've died in my nearly 40 years on this planet, Senator, who never inspired more people to go to church. Like, I never saw churches filled, standing room only, parking lots down the street, because other great men died in my lifetime. This was a specific Charlie Kirk miracle. And so, if you're asking, my takeaway from this is, what would Charlie have wanted? Well, I've been through some major battles with Charlie. We'd witnessed the 2020 election, which was soul-crushing. And upon the news of Joe Biden's installation in some of the darkest days of, I think, our republic, Charlie Kirk grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and said, now's not our time to cry or be miserable. It is to us to carry the torch, to stand upright, and to continue the mission of America first. If it dies in our hearts, it will die in everyone's heart. And so now is the time, and this is an exact quote, now is the time, Benny, to go 50 times harder, is what Charlie would say to me. And so that is what I will embody. Now is not my time to cry or to sob or to be blubbering weakling. Now is the time to go 50 times harder for Charlie.
That is well said. I mean, I'm telling you from the start to right then, Vinny, that is the best example I've ever heard of a martyr, and the best example of truly Charlie's life. That is, once again, I go back to my goal now. Charlie set that example that I want friends to be able to talk about me like that. That's what I want my life to be. Title, don't care. What I accomplish, I don't care. I just want to be able to have people to be able to visit with like me or about me like that, and actually have a celebration of life.
Yes. So that's what we were witness to. We were witness to what I believe, I'm not sure I've ever seen a miracle, but now that I think back on Charlie's life, now I believe that I was witness to a slow motion miracle of what Charlie was doing. Nobody ever, no young man at 13 years old, young men at 13 years old. I don't know how old your boys are, but young men at 13 years old are typically getting Legos stuck up their nose. Charlie Kirk was wandering the halls of the RNC convention while Mitt Romney was running for president, trying to fund Turning Point USA, trying to look for his first donors in a borrowed suit from his father. God has a calling on his life, and it was a miraculous thing to see. And that's why there's no replacing Charlie. There's simply the continuation of his energy and the remembering of his legacy in our own ways and with our own disciplines. And so since you are in the Senate, and since I know that we are up against a hard out, I did want to ask you about this, getting to the hard work that perhaps only a senator can do. Will there be a special committee set up perhaps to investigate left-wing radicalization and terrorism? Do you want to be on that committee? Is there a push for that in the Senate? I believe there certainly should be. Follow-up question to that is the Smith-Mundt Act. I know that some of your fellow senators are talking about potentially reestablishing that to ensure that there is no ability to have government-shared propaganda in order to disrupt the American public. A two-part question, Senator. The floor is yours.
Both those, yes. Here's what I don't want to happen with this special committee or select committee is, we need to go after these radical groups. We need to go after these domestic terrorists. And it's interesting to me how the tides have turned right on this left that was saying that they felt threatened, yet you didn't see the same type of violence. I said this on my social media. I've said this openly. Is that there's a big difference between Charlie Kirk's death and I'm not going to even mention the other people's names, but where you didn't see the burning of the cities, the smashing of the windows. You saw prayer rituals. You saw people turning to Christ. You saw an outpouring of support and not violence. And so when we do the investigation needs to be it needs to be focused specifically on looking at those that are funding these programs. It's not free speech. We're not going after free speech. It's not going after hate speech. There's a line that is crossed between having a social media platform and speaking your mind versus paying people for destruction, paying for people to go to Cuba, as you were pointing out earlier, to work with radical groups. There's a difference. There's a thin line.
They bragged about
hate
it.
Speech. Yes,
they're bragging about it. They did do that. They did do that.
No,
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a thin line between hate speech and freedom of speech, which was protected in the Constitution, and then stepping across it and actually inciting violence and funding the violence too. Paid agitators are insinuating violence to some degree. And so what is that line? I think there is a role for Congress to play, but we can't allow it to become a division. We've got to get to the root of the problem. Now, Kash Patel and the DOJ and the President of the United States is focusing directly on that. Who is funding these programs? And, you may have the left media that'll be saying that we're trying to censor free speech. We are not. We're going after the violent acts that they are doing, not the speech, not their ability to post. It's when they incite the violence that leads to acts what just took place. This gentleman, and I'm not going to mention his name either, but it will just use his initial TR. How TR was radicalized wasn't in his home. He was radicalized by individual groups, we believe. We'll look into it. I don't want to say he was 100%, but we're going to look into it. And that funding mechanism that is doing that, is that coming from billionaires here inside the United States? Is it being funded by outside adversaries into this country that wants to disrupt and bring down our democracy from within, which is what was said by Stalin? How is it that we can stop that influence that is directly attacking our democracy, because it is attacking our democracy? And so anything we can do in the Senate, we will do, and any support we can give the DOJ in doing so, we can. It doesn't take a special committee for the DOJ to enforce the laws of the land, though. But that isn't needed. So how can we work to be helpful? That's the goal. And we want to work side by side with the White House and with DOJ, with Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and the Senate, for everybody. This is for everybody. This isn't a political thing. This is for everybody to protect our democracy, because this is a threat on democracy of what is happening right now.
I just want to pop something up from somebody who I know that you've worked with before in the House, Anna Polina Luna, who made a lot of news this morning, beginning to call out left-wing billionaires who are foreign, who fund militant organizations here that orchestrate violent riots. We know that they do this. We can trace the money back. They're calling for a full treasury freeze on assets. Now, the vast majority of rich people on earth have assets here in our nation and have assets in American banks. Do you agree with this? If proven that these foreign left-wing billionaires are in fact inciting domestic terrorism?
If proven, 100%, without question. This is how you get to it. Like I said, there is a thin line that separates hate speech and freedom of speech to the violence. And when you step across that line, that's when we have the right to protect our republic, to protect our democracy, and those that live within it.
Yes. Neville Singham is the individual here. Obviously, many people know the George Soros name. Birds of a feather. All right. Well, thank you, Senator. Godspeed, and thank you for that poignant and profound memory and recollection of Charlie Kirk. You've already remembered Charlie Kirk in the best way possible, which is to fall in love, get married, and have 1 million kids. And that's what he always told me. I said, fall in love, get married, and have 1 million kids. And well, we're doing our part in the Johnson family to keep up with you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a important time to center yourself, lock in, stay focused, and understand that God is the one who brings down the walls. God is the one who walks before us. It is merely us, his agents, who are going to be the salt and light in the earth. And so let the victory be God's, let the battles be his, and ensure that you are ready and prepared for that time in your own way to commit. Everyone has different talents. Everybody has different things that they can bring to the table. And the senator was talking about some of what he learned from Charlie there. And well, I got to tell you, put that profile up one more time. Boy, howdy. Is this something that we could all do? Start families. Start families, teach our faith, instill our faith. Look at the senator's family. By the time that guy's 80, he's going to have like 20, 30 grandchildren. Do you know how much more powerful that is than some androgynous hobgoblin shrieking and yelling through bloodshot eyes, spittle flying out of her mouth, yellow teeth, about how much they are squeeing over what happened to Charlie? Do you know how much more powerful that is? You want to get back at that ideology? Here's a great way to do it. Start a family. Fall in love. Be committed to changing your country the best possible way. How is right there on your screen. Ladies and gentlemen, Bond Charge is a sponsor of our program. It is a incredible asset for me when we come home from stressful days. It is the sauna blanket. I don't have space in my house. I have 4 kids. I don't know how many kids the senator. How many kids does the senator have? I think there's some 6, 7. I have 4. I have 4 kids. There's no room in my house. There's no room in my home. I don't have room for a sauna. Some people do. Joe Rogan has a sauna, an ice bath, and all this other stuff, and a gym, and all this cool stuff. Like some Wookiee, I don't know what he has. It's awesome, and I'm proud of him. But I don't got that room. So Bond Charge hooks it up for me. Maybe you don't have room for a sauna either, or the ability to spend all that bag on a massive sauna. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bond Charge sauna blankets got you. Same benefits, lower the heat, infrared heat that can release endorphins, leave you feeling euphoric, set you up for a beautiful night's sleep. This is when I use it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Go right now to bondcharge.com/Benny and use the coupon code Benny to save 15%. BONCHARGE.com/Benny. Use coupon code Benny to save 15%. Bond Charge ships worldwide. All products are HSA and FSA eligible for pre-tax savings of 40%. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now from what I believe would be Turning Point headquarters is Jack Posobiec, who spoke at a Charlie Kirk memorial celebration last night that had to be in a stadium because so many people showed up. I think we'll have a whole week of that. Joining us now, Jack Posobiec. Jack, there we go. Good man. Welcome back. Please, the floor is yours. Talk to me about the energy at ASU last night. We have clips and videos right here from it. What a powerful vigil. I mean, it is unspeakably beautiful.
Well, Benny, I mean, this was the, thanks again for having me on. And I'll just say, Benny, thanks to you as well for all that you've done this week, the media, the keep streaming. It's been tough for all of us who knew Charlie and as close as you were to him as well. It's rough, but I know that you would say as well as I would say that, we can kind of, and I heard you in the previous segment, we can kind of hear Charlie's voice in our ear a little bit. Go big, go everywhere, be everywhere. That's,
Bro,
that's Charlie.
I hate to interrupt you, but if I may, please,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but because you've been doing the exact same thing, and because it has fallen to us as his friends and as those with a platform and those who knew him the closest to use those platforms in order to instill his legacy, because there is now a massive campaign out to destroy the legacy of Charlie Kirk. We're both seeing it.
So bad.
We must mercilessly dispatch that evil and demonic energy that is going to try and come to attack Charlie. They won't win, but we must keep fighting. I just want to establish something very quickly, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I never do this, but we have to stop on this point. I have seen, you and I both seen Charlie go through some of the toughest situations any man could ever go through. Things that would break tough and strong and mean men would be broken and they would quit. And I've never once saw Charlie. Yes, will probably never be public.
No,
I have seen so many people betray him. I've seen so many people backstab him. I've seen so many people come out and so many billion-dollar infrastructures, globalist infrastructures come after him. The weight that he carried every single day and the lightness upon which he carried it was profoundly centered on him telling guys like you and guys like me, this isn't your time to cry or blubber or be weak. We are not going to be weak. We are going to be strong. We are going to carry on. If I can do it, you certainly can do it, bearing a scintilla of the percentage of what I have to bear. That was something he told us constantly.
Every day.
Yeah. And so, so forgive me for interrupting, but just if you could pivot off that, Jack, like, how often did you hear that message from Charlie?
Literally every single time I talked to him. If you go to Charlie with, sometimes you get, I don't know, in this life, you get inflection points and, hey, should I do this or should I do that? You're faced at a crossroads. You're trying to do two things at the same time. Charlie's answer every single time would be figure it out, find a way to do everything, work harder, be better. That was Charlie, right? It's just, if there was a way to do it bigger, he would say, do it the biggest way possible. And you would say, well, I have this idea. And then he would look at you and he would find a way to do it 10 times bigger and somehow cheaper and more effective and more smooth. And you're like, how did he do that? And he would always figure it out. And I think about that, and it's like, and I see people saying, oh, how are you out there? Why are you doing all this stuff? And I say, because every single time I ever talked to Charlie about something like that, this is what he said to do. So I know.
Yes. It would actually be for those of us who know him the best, it would be a insult to him.
Correct. To
use this as a moment to cower or to be fearful or to blubber or to think about only ourselves and not think about this movement upon which now it rests for us to make sure that Turning Point carries forward. And you did this remarkable job last night. We have some of these clips that I think will stun the audience if you haven't already seen them. Of the arena itself, please. The arena. I mean, this is like a sports arena that is packed with what must be tens of thousands.
Yeah, it's the ASU where the Sun Devils play, and it's actually I don't know the full capacity offhand. I can check with production staff. We would get you the number, but it was just indescribable. And we came in and the traffic was just wrapped all the way around campus, and even getting to, and security was very strong. And I want to say thank you, of course, to all the security and the staff that allowed us to do this. Yes. This was the first real Turning Point event that's taken place since Charlie was assassinated. And, obviously security was on everyone's mind. And that is why we held it inside while many of the others have been outside. But I got to say, the real story of this isn't anything that I said or anything that I did. The real story of this is that crowd. And I'll tell you two things. The crowd was just, there was so much love for Charlie and Erica and for the children and for the family. But I will tell you another thing, and I don't think I realized this until I stood up there. And by the way, the crowd was on their feet before I even said a word. Before I just walked out, and they were just roaring. But I could hear it in their voices, and I could hear it in people were shouting. There's anger. There's a lot of anger. People are furious. They're saying Charlie was taken out. Charlie was killed. Charlie was assassinated. What are we to do? Are we just supposed to sit back? Yes. Are we supposed to say, oh, and then the media comes out and says, oh, it's time to unite. And look, everybody can see those clips of me and Destiny yesterday and how that all went down. And, how do you unite with someone who wants to mock Charlie, mock Erica, mock the children, say he deserved it, just lie, obfuscate, and smear. And you can't. There has to be justice. There has to be justice for Charlie Kirk. There has to be accountability for everyone who fueled this, for everyone who's perpetuated this downward spiral of unpersoning, the shunning of family members. That's where this starts, the censorship, the arrests, and then eventually this. Also, although I did see that, I guess the news just broke that Fani Willis was disqualified. So, we're getting some justice, in this world. But at the same time, that was years after the fact. So if we're in the driver's seat now with the government, we're in the driver's seat, House, Congress, presidency, we need that action. And I'm just telling you, Benny, from having been with the people there last night, these people want action and they are demanding it.
Yes, Jack, I would be remiss if
I'm told 14,000, by the way.
14,000. Look at this photo. Look at that. It's just chilling. It's chilling. A true life of a martyr is seen in the actions after the death of the martyr. Do they grow stronger? Does their flame ignite? And that, ladies and gentlemen, that image right there shows you precisely how powerful God's hand is right now on this nation and what he's using Charlie Kirk's legacy for. Jack, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, given your background in military intelligence, to assess the left. You've, of course, written the book on it, obviously. You yourself have faced down with Antifa and have been a target of left-wing radicalized violence. I personally watched you have to be sequestered by DC police when a mob of rabid leftists, black bloc, Antifa members were trying to murder you. And that's what was happening. There's a pretty famous photo of it. And this was about 5 years ago. Republicans didn't take this stuff seriously. It's how we started off the show. That because of the limp-wristed nature of the cuck Republicans who have decided that their chief goal in life is to be liked by leftists and to be accepted by the MSNBC and CNN crowd. There it is. Perfect. They allowed this to happen to you. They allowed our president to get shot. They allowed our president to get multiple assassination attempts, Charlie Kirk, to be murdered because Republicans refused to take domestic left-wing extremism and terrorism seriously. Jack, since you yourself have stared it down in its face, talk through what needs to happen next.
Look, Benny, it's very clear, and I just want to address something that's been kind of floating around out there. People were talking about hate speech. Charlie Kirk wasn't killed by speech. Charlie Kirk was killed by extremists seeking to silence speech, specifically his speech. That's what killed Charlie Kirk, and the bullets. We can see what was written on them, which give you the motive right there, directly tied back to Antifa, specifically referencing the anthem. Bella Ciao, for example, if you've studied this, as I know you know, Benny, is the sort of international anthem of Antifa. It's very well known in their circles. It's used in other purposes, to be sure, but it is also very, very highly revered by Antifa around the world. This is a domestic and international terrorist group. There's no question. And it needs to be treated as such. Now, there are layers to this terrorist group. There are also sympathizers. There are legal entities, legal affairs entities that are used. There are NGOs that are laundering money that are being done, that is being done to support and finance these efforts. And all of those networks, you referenced 2020, in the summer of 2020, all of the networks that perpetuated the violence of 2020 are still in place. They're all there. They could be activated with a moment's notice. And so all of the burnings, all of the violence, it could all start again. And that's how it needs to be treated, with a legal apparatus at the federal level. That's one aspect. The other aspect, I would also argue, and in fact had been saying publicly from about a week prior to Charlie's assassination, this was in the wake of the Minneapolis shooting, and Dr. Gorka in the White House has been saying this as well, and I completely support his efforts here. We need to start looking at the radical trans extremism as a violent group, the same way that we used to look at serial killers as a violent group. We need, and how do we do that? We had a problem with serial killers in this country. What did we do? We set up cells at the FBI to study the psychology, behavioral science. You can go watch that show, Mindhunter on Netflix, or Criminal Minds out there. And it was, of course, it was so good they had to cancel Mindhunter because it was telling the truth about what the FBI should be doing. And so that's why we'll never get another season of it. And we know how to address this. And what did they do? They broke the code. They broke down the code. And then they went and disseminated that where? To local law enforcement, to state law enforcement, to schools, so that early intervention Because we see in so many of these cases, Benny, how many times does it happen where something happens and then we get the words, oh, he was on our radar.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there were previous incidents. It's ridiculous. And so as a country, we need a nationwide effort to address this before it gets to the point where someone who is in this community or someone who is associated with this community is on a roof pointing a gun at me, Benny, pointing a gun at you, pointing a gun at the students, pointing a gun at anyone.
Yeah, I know that you're a devoted Catholic, and this is just the single most cut and dry example of every warning sign imaginable in the mass shooting in Minneapolis just 2 weeks ago, Jack. This was not long ago, when you had a transgender, now mass murderer, target those children. And every conceivable warning sign in the book was present, and no one did anything, and no one reported anything. And it is really something where we have to look at it as a society and say, I don't want the blood of those children on my hands, because we as a society refuse to face hard questions about these trends. It's something that we really must look at clear-eyed. I'm glad that JD Vance and Stephen Miller were doing that on Charlie's show yesterday. We played those clips. I'd like to just sort of end here, Jack, with your commentary on what must happen next from a federal level. Romans 13 says that God sets up the governments of our nation and puts in power those who wield the sword. And they do not wield the sword in vain. They wield the sword in order to cause terror in evil men, the indifference of good men, to ensure that we must be safe. And that is the role of government. So, Jack, if you would, please, what is the role now for the Trump administration in dismantling that which seeks to kill and destroy?
Look, Benny, you go back to the ancient world. And why were governments instituted in the first place? Well, governments were instituted because if you go into the ancient world, you had what? Tribal warfare. So you wrong my tribe declares war on your tribe. The problem was this system does not scale. And so codes were instituted. The Code of Hammurabi was one of the earliest codes of law that we had to break away from the normal state, the natural state, if you will, of humanity, human nature, being warlike, to say, this is what happens. For this crime, this will be the punishment. The role of government is to deliver, do, and exact justice. And I spent all last year talking about this. We call it the iron law of reciprocity. There must be due and specific reciprocity for these actions. And so when the government steps down and does not take this action, this shows that only one side is conducting action, horrific violence, murder, killing. And if there is not justice done, then that is when governments lose the favor of the people. That is what leads to spirals and the collapse of regimes throughout history, the fall of Rome, the fall of Byzantium. And so we as a country need to step up, and it is very important for legitimacy. It is very important for stability. It is very important for balance to understand that due justice must absolutely be done. We need the justice for Charlie Kirk, and it is literally everything that Western civilization depends on right now.
There are many people that you should follow. Jack Posobiec is one that you must follow now. This is an important moment. This is a moment that you need to pour into those who have set about their life's work of continuing the legacy of Charlie and ensuring that those who seek to desecrate it or try and malign it, that they are shut down, that we shut their mouths, and more importantly, that we grow something that would make Charlie proud. Follow Jack right here. Godspeed, my friend and my brother.
God bless, Benny. To your family as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, we told you that we would be bringing you live coverage from the Senate hearing with the Kash Patel. And my team has a number of fascinating clips from those who won't shock you, Senator Hawley and Senator Eric Schmidt, talking about the violence that has shot through and wrought out the left entirely. It is such an important moment for us to have clarity, a vision, and to not allow them to say, oh, this is a both sides thing. To do that insults Charlie and effectively says that Charlie is responsible for what happened to Charlie Kirk. We won't allow it. Senator Hawley won't allow it, ladies and gentlemen. He went scorched earth here in the Senate. We have the clip for you. Let's go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, good to see you. Thank you for being here. You're leading the FBI at a very critical time for that agency and also a critical time for our country. And I want to start by talking to you about the tide of violence that we have seen, ideological violence against people of faith, particularly Christians. You just think here, take a rough catalog. Just in the last couple of years, we've seen shooting at the Covenant School, Christian school in Nashville. We've seen school shooting at the Annunciation School. We've seen church shootings multiply. We've seen acts of crime and violence, vandalism, arson against churches and parishes all across the country. And then, of course, last week, Charlie Kirk, who said, I want to be remembered for my courage, for my faith, was shot on a college campus. Let me just start with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Is the FBI, and I appreciate the tremendous work the FBI has done in this investigation, is the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence?
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence, and we're producing results on that we'll disclose when appropriate.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me just ask you a few questions about that if I could. Sure. Reports have suggested that the FBI is investigating a broader network of groups that may have had some knowledge of the shooter's plans. Can you give us any details on that, following up what you already said in public? How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement, and we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord, so that the information we gathered is sustained and held in a evidentiary posture that we could use in prosecution should it be decided to do so. And we're also going to be investigating anyone and everyone involved in that Discord chat.
Okay, very good. I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate, who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that, and we're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.
And you're running all of that to ground?
Every single one.
Yeah, fantastic.
Finally, someone asking the correct questions. Producers, my producers are saying that they're attempting to get the clip of Senator Schmidt. We'll see, but he's asking about the threats on Blue Sky. Of course, there is no shortage of threats against us on Blue Sky. A reminder that I fear God alone. That I fear God alone. And God is the author of life and death. And that what evil wants is for us to cower in fear and live a life of meekness and weakness. And we will not. We will not. We will live a life of strength. Part of that life of strength comes from 120 life. Comes from what you're putting in your body to ensure that you are healthy and able to carry on. Of course, to have an America First movement, you must first have a Make America Healthy Again movement, because it doesn't matter if we're all dead. It doesn't matter if we're all dead because we live unhealthy lives, and some of the most unhealthy lives on earth, actually, here in this country. Something's gone horribly wrong. One of Charlie's lasting legacies, in fact, was the uniting of the MAGA and MAHA movements. RFK gave him full credit for that yesterday in a beautiful, actually correction on Sunday night in Washington, D.C. in a beautiful speech. I encourage you to go rewatch it. Anyway, we are trying to be healthy. We're doing our very level-headed best to lower our blood pressure, something that is very hard to do. But high blood pressure is a major killer in this country, and so we drink 120 Life. 120 Life helps naturally lower your blood pressure, reduce your chance of getting diabetes because, well, it comes with the 5 blended, most trusted natural ways to reduce your chances of having high blood pressure or diabetes. It's trusted by healthcare and medical professionals. I love drinking it. It's delicious. My children love it as well. Their 5 all-natural ingredients are delicious, refreshing, and flavorful. I can barely get my hands, quite frankly, on a bottle when it's at home because my children love drinking it, and I want my children to be healthy too. So, ladies and gentlemen, for a limited time, try 120 Life. Save 20% off. Just use the code Benny at checkout. 120 Life. 120 Life offers a risk-free trial with a full refund if you don't see lower numbers in 2 weeks. Go to 120life, life.com, and use the code Benny to save 20%. There's nothing to lose except your high blood pressure. Use code Benny for 20% off. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking. My editors are saying they're having trouble getting this clip talking about Blue Sky. Oh, do we have it? Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry about that. I was just checking, just locking back in. Sorry about that. Thank you, producers. The best producers in the world on this program. A massive shout out to all of them. Can we give a round of applause to our producers and to our entire production team? I know that I am here in front of you, but do you understand the immense power of the team that we have here, also locking in for long, hard, grueling hours to ensure that Charlie's legacy is held firm, and we are proud of them. We at this program will not quit. We will not fail, and we will not grow weary. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Schmidt asking about the obscene assassination attempts on what is the far left-wing terrorist bot account media platform. What would be the right way to classify Blue Sky? Blue Sky is simply a nexus, echo chamber for left-wing terrorism. That is precisely what it is. Senator Eric Schmidt asking the right question here.
Blue Sky, the left-wing alternative to X, was so overwhelmed with these posts that the platform was forced to issue a statement warning its users to stop glorifying the murder. And it wasn't just random social media trolls. It was journalists, elite college professors, and even politicians, all but saying Charlie's assassination was justified because of what he thought, because of what he said. We saw the flood of hit pieces, the most powerful media outlets in the nation dishonestly attacking and villainizing Charlie for the most vicious possible terms. How can you ask us to unite under that? There can be no unity between good and evil. Somebody has to win this thing. And as a country, we have to absolutely reject it. And don't tell me it's both sides. It didn't happen in a vacuum. Over the past decade, we've seen an explosion of political violence, not just one-off lone wolf attacks, but organized, systemic political violence at a mass scale. It is not organic. It is the offspring of a dark and clandestine system funded in part with our own tax dollars, winning with a large network of foundations, NGOs, activist organizations, and front groups. This system lurks behind every radical leftist movement in our nation today. The George Soros empire has financed a vast ecosystem of radicals, all working together, dropping off bricks at riots to unleash a tidal wave of violently anarchists on our streets and to prop it up in an army of researchers and experts and journalists and propagandists who downplay the political violence.
What he's doing is serious.
I'm going to ask you, because I don't have a ton of time, and I would point out, we've heard years of the left, their loudest voices calling anyone on the right extremist MAGA Republicans, fascists, Nazis, an existential threat to democracy. Check yourself. And don't give me this both sides bullshit.
Good. excellent and beautiful. Boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a clip for you, and we have some breaking news. President Trump has not forgotten Irina Zastruka. President Trump has posted multiple memorials now to Irina Zastruka. Something big is coming. He's done this without commentary. President Trump is just posting her memory in loving memory of Irina Zastruka. President Trump has not forgotten. Something's coming. Something's about to happen. Something remarkable happened on Fox News last night. I've never seen anything like this. And we've been going on Fox a little bit, and we've noticed a remarkable strength in the voice of a number of the broadcasters on Fox. And Greg Gutfeld is one of those voices. Greg's always been kind to us and reposts and shares stuff from us all the time, and has been very kind private messages to me. Greg Gutfeld had one of the most crystal clear and anointed takedowns of one of the leftists who are allowed on Fox, and Fox's biggest show, I believe, by numbers, which is a show called The Five. So this is something that is being seen by millions and millions live, and many millions afterwards on social media for good reason. I was looking for something to properly dispatch this whole both sides bullshit, as the senator called it correctly there. But I can't do better than this clip. You can't find anything better than this. And Greg's doing it in the face of, again, the token leftist on Fox. And it just rings like a bell. Something truly beautiful. I know that Greg had spoken at a number of Turning Point events. He always seemed very close with Charlie. He obviously really loved Charlie. And this is just the raw and visceral reaction to a left-winger who's saying, no, you don't understand. You guys also have a problem with political assassination. Bold strategy. Let's see how it plays out.
We don't need it. What is interesting here is, why is only this happening on the left and not the right? That's all we need to know.
What about
There's absolutely no cognitive...
What about Melissa Hortman that we just talked about?
You want to talk about Melissa Hortman? Did you know her name before it happened? None of us did. None of us were spending every single day talking about Mrs. Hortman. I never heard of her until after she died.
She doesn't matter?
Don't play that bullshit with me. You know what I'm saying is, there was no demonization, amplification about that woman before she died. It was a specific crime against her by somebody who knew her. The same. Now you could bring up Josh Shapiro, but then you will not bring up, for example, that was a pro-Palestine person. So don't use your, what about this? The fact of the matter is, the both sides argument not only doesn't fly, we don't care. We don't care about your both sides argument. That shit is dead. For one thing, there is no cognitive dissonance on our side. On your side, your beliefs do not match reality, so you're coming up with these rationalizations like, what about this or what about that? We're not doing that because we saw it happen. We saw a young, bright man assassinated, and we know who did it. We are not coming up with rationalizations. We are calm, we are honest, and we are resolute. We're not defensive, and I understand the defensiveness. I understand why people are saying, what about this and what about this? Because if you have to face the underlying fact to this, your life is going to fall apart, because you're going to realize you're not the good guys. If you sat around and you defended the mutilation of children, you're not the good guys. If you sat 600, 700 cases of harassment against Republicans, and you said, but what about this? What about this? And then you see this murder after calling somebody a fascist, you realize, maybe I'm not the good guy. That is a hell of a realization to deal with. So therefore, you have to grasp at rationalizations. You don't have to do that, Jessica. They do. I don't believe you're part of that group, but why the hell do you have to mimic and echo that crap to us? He was a patsy. That guy was a patsy. He was under the hypnotic spell of a direct-to-consumer nihilism, the trans cult, and you know that. If you can decide that biology is false, you can agree that murder is okay and that humanity is expendable. How you cannot see that alone and see that for what the evil it is without having to attach all of these other things is beyond me.
I just want to be clear, and I want to let people speak. I in no way intended at all to minimize what happened to Charlie. I was horrified by it. I have not been on the five
but
since
the two
then,
sides argument, well, it's like pig Latin to a duck.
No. All that I was saying is could we have all of the information before you just say they did this? Because that is a broad brush to paint with this. And this kid
Let's
does
have
seem...
a conversation.
No.
Charlie had a conversation. He got shot. Look,
I'm
sorry, Jessica. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You weren't here for a week. You came in here and it's cold. And I'm sorry, but this is a story that is immune to news cycles. It's immune to rationalizations. It's immune to bias. This thing is with us for good. And we all have to deal with that. So that means we can't live by the same arguments that you might be reading about relativism among the media. We can't deal with those stories. It doesn't matter. The media is dead to us on this story. They built this thing up. We're dealing with it. We're going to act. We don't care what the whataboutism is anymore. That shit's dead. Sorry. For the swearing as well. I apologize to the American public. I'm going to shut up for the rest of the show.
Well done. Greg Gutfeld. Well done. Do you find it clarifying and calming that we now know what we fight? I want to end with this. Do you find it clarifying that this isn't a political battle necessarily? I'm not trying to get weak here. I'm just trying to establish what we truly face. It's an important note to take away from all of this. That it really isn't the principalities of this world that we're fighting. When you see these demons frothing at the mouth, squealing and screeching, squeeing over a good man, the most honorable man I've ever known, a father, a loving husband, squealing and shrieking demonically with joy that his children are orphaned, that his wife is widowed, that America has lost a president. I firmly believe that Charlie Kirk would have been a president in my lifetime, probably relatively swiftly. Do you find that bothersome and obscene? Of course. But more importantly, do you understand what that is? It's not really... It can't really be seen through the political lenses of our modern day ecosystem. The paradigm is incorrect because it's really not like a black, white, red, blue thing. It's not. It's a good, evil thing. It's a darkness versus light thing. And the banality of evil has shown its face here. And now so many Americans are awake to what is truly happening in this nation. I'm going to paraphrase it, and I'm going to do it poorly, but we're going to do it nonetheless. For those who are grappling with whether God exists, all you must merely do is look at evil and how hard it fights in order to steal, kill, and destroy on this earth. In order to know that evil is real, you must know that the opposite of evil is real. That divine balance should give you hope. And I think that there are so many tens or hundreds of millions who are recognizing that right now. And it will be the single greatest backlash in my lifetime. And we begin the next great revival. We're proud to be part of it, ladies and gentlemen. Our verse of the day from Psalms. Even though I walk Through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. At this moment, David was being hunted by his own people for speaking truth, and was being hunted through the hills by his own people that he saved, and was set for death. And all was against him. And he says, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. We fear no evil, for God is with us. In the end, we win. It's Benny. We'll be with you this week. We'll be at Charlie's memorial service in Phoenix. More to come. It's our honor as ever. See ya.
The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. They should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country and this world. You have no idea. So I want to tell you that we'll never surrender. We never will. Ever. Ever.
truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.